playing again because of a knee injury. Sheffield Wednesday can't be too optimistic either, after drawing 1-1 at home to Manchester City last week. But, as their manager Jack Charlton says, they always play better away. And last season, of course, it took Arsenal 4 games to get the better of Wednesday. Finally, Arsenal themselves could well get through tonight when they play Leeds United for the 3rd time in 8 days. In the first leg at Ellen Road last week, Leeds could only manage a 1-1 draw. In the league on Saturday, the score was the same, and only Leeds goalkeeper David Harvey stopped both points from being lost.
Thank you, Tim. News there of 7 teams from our region chasing a rather special pot, the Football League Cup. Well, here in Hull, we have some more champion pots. These are 2 ranges of tableware made at Hornsey Pottery, about 15 miles up the coast from here. Now, both these have won Design Council awards, but they're only 2 of a number of ranges developed at Hornsey over the last 30 years. In fact, the story of how the company has grown from its small beginnings should be an example to any would-be entrepreneur.
Hornsey is a pleasant little holiday resort on the east coast. On the face of it, a pretty unlikely place to spawn an award-winning industry. But it was to here that 2 brothers, Desmond and Colin Rawson, returned after the last war, armed only with their service gratuities. At 4 Victoria Avenue, the 2 brothers invested their money in a second-hand kiln, which they installed in the back wash-house and proceeded to disrupt many of the household functions. It was in this kiln that the 2 started producing ornamental pottery. The traditional method of making pottery is with the wheel, but craft work like this takes a great deal of time. In the early days of Hornsey Pottery, the competition was intense, and in the late 1950s, the Rawsons opened a new factory on the outskirts of the town, and since then they've thoroughly mechanized their business. But the 2 brothers still dreamt of breaking into an even more competitive field, household tableware, and when the breakthrough came in 1966, it left the competition reeling. Up until then, transfers were used to put all the designs onto pottery. But at Hornsey, they developed a method of directly screen printing the decorations onto the product. For the Rawsons, it was the turning point.
This innovation put us in a position, if you like, to compete without competition. And this applied equally to the large producers as well as the small ones. It gave us a real lead. There's no doubt about that. And from that time, and we're talking right back from 1966 to the present time, it's put us in a very, very strong commercial position.
The initial lead the new printing methods gave Hornsey allowed them to quickly expand and develop. Now the Hornsey site occupies 24 acres, and a £1 million development at Lancaster, covering almost twice that area, was opened 5 years ago. Still, innovations continue to be introduced. About 350 people are now employed at each site, and recently the company has been involved in a joint venture on the Greek island of Corfu. So far, Hornsey Potteries have won 2 major design awards for their contrast and concept ranges, and another award for the entire design team. Of course, you've won now 2 major design awards.
Yes.
Which is your favourite range that you make?
Well, of course, Contrast, which gave us the 1975 Design Award, is naturally a favourite. It was the second major innovation, and in fact, it is still the company's best-selling range by far. But most important, it has produced an awful lot of business for us on the export market. And naturally, we like our exports to be as high as possible, and it's been a great help in that direction. But the next one, Concept, that came into production in 1977 and again gave us a design award, was a further innovation and probably, as far as design is concerned, even more sophisticated than Contrast. And of course embodied a lot of the things that we had learned through production of Contrast. So a further advancement, and it too has helped us a great deal on the export market. So if you like, I've got 2 favourites to date.
It is said that nowadays it's much more difficult for people with entrepreneurial spirit to do what you've done, develop a company of this size from what was essentially a 2-man business.
Well, I'm sure that you are quite correct that it is more difficult now than it was when Desmond and I started back in 1949. But I think the key to success or failure is persistence. Because I believe that if a person is prepared to persist and work beyond the point at which most people throw in the towel, then they will succeed.
And this is Charisma, Hornsey's latest range, which is due in the shops any day now. Well, one thing of which Hull can be justly proud is its young musicians. The city boasts a classical orchestra of youngsters who made several recordings, a brass band and a jazz orchestra. And we've invited the 16-piece jazz ensemble, whose ages range from 13 to 22, to play for us the aptly titled Jet Out of Town. So take it away, maestro. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Well, the weather's been beautiful today, and we're not going to jet out of town just yet. We're going to have a look at the weather picture, which comes from local lass Joan Rich. She's 9 and attends Ainthorpe Junior School here in Hull.
Hello, Joanne. Well, it'll be a fine night with clear intervals and a minimum temperature of 11 centigrade. Tomorrow will be another warm, dry day with some sunshine. Maximum temperatures around 21 centigrade, and winds will continue mainly light southwesterly. And that's the weather.
Well, that's it. We've enjoyed ourselves here in Hull. Hope you've enjoyed the programme. We'll be back on terra firma in Leeds for tomorrow night's Look North. But let's have one final look at Hull at eventide. Good night.
It's 6:17 on Tuesday, September the 4th. Tonight on Nationwide, we're anticipating the event that's bound to be uppermost in people's minds this week, the ceremonial funeral tomorrow of Earl Mountbatten of Burma. Today in Hampshire, the doors of Romsey Abbey, where the body of Lord Mountbatten has been lying, opened an hour earlier than planned to allow thousands of mourners to pay their last respects. Here in London, dignitaries from all over the world have been arriving for tomorrow's funeral service in Westminster Abbey. Before we look at the preparations for that service, it's worth reminding ourselves of Lord Louis Mountbatten's family tree, because not only was he a naval hero, a brilliant soldier, and a political leader of enormous ability, he was also related to nearly all the crowned heads of Europe. And so tomorrow's service will be attended by a host of kings, queens, princes, and princesses.
And the reason for such a glittering array of royalty is not hard to find. The Mountbatten family can be traced back with certainty to the 9th century and the Holy Roman Emperor Charlemagne. And even this family tree, which only traces Lord Mountbatten's mother's side in the last century, reveals numerous royal connections all over Europe. Lord Mountbatten was a direct descendant of Queen Victoria, who in fact used to bounce him on her knee when he was a baby. The family name then was Battenberg, but his father, Prince Louis, changed the name to Mountbatten in 1917 when the government, because of anti-German feeling, advised that members of the royal family should take British names. The family of King George V, of course, took the name Windsor. The branches from Queen Victoria spread, well, far and wide. There is, of course, the line to our Queen Elizabeth II, to the German Kaisers, and to the Spanish royal family, now revived with Juan Carlos back on the throne. More closely related to Lord Mountbatten was the last Tsar of Russia, who was his uncle, and this, as I said, is just the mother's side of his ancestry. On his father's side of the family tree, there are connections with German princes and princesses, the Bulgarian and Russian royal families. Lord Mountbatten himself was fascinated by his ancestry, and he became immensely knowledgeable on the subject of genealogy and family relationships. He was once heard to greet Princess Alexandra with the words, "And how is my second cousin twice removed?" His studies led to the publication of books on genealogy, which showed his pride in his family connections and his delight in tracing the heritage of the royal families of Europe.
It's particularly appropriate that a man who so loved the monarchy and the pomp and circumstance which surrounds it should be afforded a funeral ceremony fit for a king. Tomorrow his body will be drawn in state through the streets of London. Nicholas Woolley has been looking at the preparations for a ceremony to which Lord Mountbatten himself gave a tremendous amount of thought.
But now I've come to the end of my useful life, and there's no point in remaining alive forever, merely becoming a burden to people. So I don't mind now, really, when it comes, as long as it's reasonably peaceful and satisfying sort of death. I said I would prefer not to be burnt or buried at sea. I'd like really just to be buried here in my hometown of Rumsey. And how they do it is entirely the decision of the authorities. I'm ready to go along with anything they do. The only thing, I hope it'll be a happy occasion. I think it's an awful thing to be sad at funerals. I hope people won't cry. They must remember that all my life I've enjoyed a joke. I've enjoyed the fun of life. And I'm going to enjoy the fun of dying. And I'm only sorry I won't be there to see the fun of the funeral.
After Lord Mountbatten's murder, that desire for cheerfulness will be hard to reconcile with the nation's outrage.
Make the DC, then go into the second time bar and finish in the Finney bar before the trio.
The funeral will be seen not just to honour a great man, but to demonstrate defiance to his murderers. But even so, it will give thousands of his admirers a fitting opportunity to express their affection for Mountbatten, especially those from the service he loved so much and in which he first made his name, the Royal Navy. The Navy won the right to draw the gun carriage at royal funerals when the horses drawing Queen Victoria's coffin tore out the ring bolt holding one of the traces and had to be replaced by sailors from HMS Excellent. To avoid similar mishaps on this occasion isn't easy when men are scarce and time is short. The 250 sailors either pulling the gun carriage or marching are as likely to be stewards or anti-submarine specialists as experts in ceremonial.
Yeah, lads, all right. Shoulders back to the last bits. All right.
And volunteers though they may be, they have a lot to learn.